Giants enter an interesting offseason after a successful year, but now GM Joe Shane has got to have make some interesting moves with the quarterback and the running back and trying to improve this squad.
And who doesn't love a good NFL conspiracy theory? The stars are aligning. Could Aaron Rodgers really end up in New York? We'll discuss.
I think it's possible. Both the Giants and Jets exceed expectations this season. Can they continue the upward trend? We'll be joined by David Tyree, maybe best known for the greatest play in the history of the Super Bowl, the helmet catch, and a member of the Jets' all-time team, their linebacker, Greg Buttle, to help us look into the crystal ball and tell you what to expect for the 2023 season. As always, we're recording this show from the Pix 11 Sports Department, high above 42nd Street in the heart of New York City.
This is the Pix 11 New York Sports Nation podcast.
As always, thank you for tuning in to our little show here. We appreciate it if you would rate, subscribe, review, all that good stuff. Tell your friends, family, anybody, really. We'll take the likes.
Yeah, we'll take the 5 stars, and I think we're worth the price. It's just the way I feel about it. All right, so let's start with coming up this weekend. We've got a great offensive and special team player. We've got a great defensive player, guys that know the leagues very well. Let's start with the AFC Championship game. Let's start with Greg Buttle. Who's going to win and why?
Okay, so what I've looked at is a whole series of things, and that is throughout the season with the Cincinnati Bengals, where they were at the beginning to how they made their way where no one thought they were going to go again, and all of a sudden now you go, how did they do that? Well, they did it because I think their head coach had changed his coaching philosophy. If you watched them last year, I think that when they got ahead, they tried to sit on the ball. Today, I don't think they do that. And you can see in the way the Bengals played to the end of this year that they just don't sit on the ball anymore, that they force the ball down the field and they rely on their defense to do what they have to do. They don't want to put their defense out there in the whole fourth quarter and hope they can defend a lead. They still want to go out there and score points. So that's why I like the Bengals and how they do a lot of things.
David Tyree, is Greg Buttle right?
It's hard to put a hardcore argument against the Bengals and the way they played. When I really look at these AFC Championship matchups, there's some trends. And the biggest trend is that our favorite Patrick Mahomes is not beating Joe Burrow, and that's a mental. That's going to be one of the biggest mental monuments to overcome. But when you look at his health, I think that's where it also gives them an advantage. I got Kansas City. I picked them from the beginning of the season to win the Super Bowl. I think he has a warrior on the inside of all that little fancy in-sync haircut that Patrick Mahomes got going on. And I think I still believe they have a solid chance. Their defense has been better than past seasons. But all to say, Macaulay Culkin at the quarterback is definitely a lot of challenges to overcome for this beaten up. And like I said, they don't have the weapons, but they are special. The Kansas City Chiefs playing together.
Well, wait, time out. I just want to add this too.
Please.
Okay, and that is that for the grace of a field goal kicker go I. Somebody said that somewhere. I don't know where it was, but it's not like the Bengals have totally controlled the Kansas City Chiefs.
No.
It appeared that way only because of the second half, the way they improvised and adjusted in the second half, that they end up winning by 3 points all the time. And to me, I think that is an indication where a team just doesn't believe they're out of a game, a la Mahomes, because you know he don't believe he's ever out of a game. So it's not like I just think that the Bengals are that powerful. I just think that they know how to play. The players know how each one is playing. And when you have a football team like that that's on the same page and you can go out and, for instance, in this championship game to Kansas City and limit Kelsey to a couple catches and maybe a touchdown, that's a huge difference in a football game that comes by 3-point victory, right, whether it's overtime or not.
I got to jump in here because you mentioned the comebacks that the Bengals have had, right, against the Chiefs. And I can't remember who it was, but somebody recently came out and said, we never made halftime adjustments. Halftime adjustments are overrated, which some NFL players have come out.
Peyton Manning mentioned that.
Well, it was Peyton Manning. Thank you.
Right.
Because I can remember who said it. So Is that true? Like, because it seems like Lou Anarumo and that defense are making adjustments at halftime.
So let me
It was
just
like
say,
we go in at halftime,
let me
have a couple
address that.
oranges, and then say,
Let
go
me-
get
3
ready for the
minutes,
second
right.
half.
They got
Let me
3
address
minutes
that.
to talk.
Okay, so the great Peyton Manning said that, right?
Yes.
How many games was he behind after halftime?
I can remember a few
The man
playoff
can't
games.
remember
A few playoff
because he
playoff.
wasn't
New England.
behind any. It's unbelievable. So he's full of it. He didn't have to make changes. Everybody else did.
You heard it here.
I think
Peyton
there's-
Manning full of it.
There's definitely halftime adjustments,
was Greg Buttle.
it's minuscule. It's like there's a few plays that you like based off what you've seen, and then there's it's more like that when it comes to adjustments versus hey we're going from 3-4 to 4-3. It's not as dramatic as people can perceive it to be.
Well, I think first of all, the matchup's awesome in the AFC
Yep.
Championship game is when you look at the quarterbacks and Mahomes. You get concerned about the high ankle sprain, even though he's full participant in practice on Wednesday. I'm curious how the Chiefs would define full participant because he did suffer a high ankle sprain on Saturday, but everyone's running with that. Clearly, there's going to be some limitation because unless he's Wolverine, no one heals from a high ankle sprain in the span of 3 days. Usually, that's a month-long injury in order to get back to 100%. So you're dealing with a limited Patrick Mahomes. The interesting thing when you look at Kansas City this year, clearly not as explosive. If you're going to compare the skill position players, the Bengals have got the explosive players. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. Obviously, you know what Joe Mixon did this past weekend up in Buffalo against the Bills. They were able to adjust what they were able to do with a revamped offensive line. Burrow got the ball out of his hands in under 2.5 seconds on average. Great in the confidence, and he's able to raise the level of his teammates. And they go into a place where they already won last year, where nobody believed that the Bengals were going to beat the Chiefs, and they went into Arrowhead and beat the Kansas City Chiefs. So it looks a lot different this year for Kansas City because they don't have that explosiveness, and because there's this Burrow is arguably the second best quarterback in the NFL right now. So the concern I'd have for Kansas City is I don't disagree with anything that David said. I kind of lean where Greg was going as far as liking the Bengals in the game is I just don't know despite what you're hearing all week long, until they kick that ball off and you see Mahomes under center, you have no idea exactly what it's going to look like.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think what gives me an added layer of hope is the Kansas City, when the Bengals are, let's just say, less than stellar, they're always leaning on the arm of Joe Burrow. But when they're less than stellar, Joe Mixon is not producing on par with his skill set, meaning like he's a guy that can catch passes out the backfield as well as go for 100. And, the Kansas City Chiefs have actually been pretty stout against the run this year. They're top 10 against the run, about 107 yards a game. So those are some of the, and then you have the rise of Isaiah. I can't pronounce his name.
Pacheco.
Thank you,
Rutgers.
guys.
Former Rutgers guy. He
Yeah, a
runs
little
hard.
Rutgers guy, right? So now we're actually starting to see some consistency in ground game to complement some of the, limitations that they've had in explosiveness from the receiver position. But I remind you, they got some leftover goods with Kadarius Toney. Starting to see some trick game there, and the inventiveness and creativity we're always seeing on display with Andy, with the big skip. And obviously Eric Bieniemy. So that's what gives me a little bit more confidence. But again, injury, high ankle sprain. Yeah, let's be sober and let's look at the track record.
Look, for all the talk though about how unexplosive this Kansas City offense is. I mean, they lost Tyree Hill, and I think they still scored more points per game than the Bengals. Now, look, the Bengals are hitting their stride, right? And the balance that you've seen is what, honestly, I think makes them so incredible. Burrow had a line about he looks at sacks and interceptions differently, right? Like a sack in the red zone to him is different than that is going to take you out of field goal range, is different than a sack on 3rd and 13 when you're trying to extend a play from midfield and you're going to punt anyway. Like, he's so next level. He's playing chess where a lot of quarterbacks are playing checkers out there. So he's okay. It's not about the numbers with him. It's, are we winning the game? And that is all he is out there to do. I love his confidence and swagger. But yeah, I'm not going against Andy on this one either.
All right, so let's start with you, Joe. You love his confidence and swagger. You're not going against
I mean, he's a
Andy Reid.
fellow Joe, right? Like, I had a
understand.
Snoopy
And-
Joe cool sweater
Right.
growing up. Like,
He's
I'm
no
all
average
about
Joe.
this.
You're no average Joe.
Yeah.
But who are you picking?
Yeah, so I'm going to pick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And the reason is, honestly, it's the 3-0, right, that Burrow has against them. I think they're a little too confident and cocky after that win against Buffalo. I don't think Buffalo was as good at this point in the season as we had them to be preseason and at certain points, right? Their defense wasn't as good this year as it has been in years past, and I think people are kind of overlooking it. I think, they might have taken a little bit for granted that they were going to run this miracle story. They're talking about the tickets in Atlanta. There was a lot to get them up for this game. But I actually think the bulletin board material, for whatever that's worth, is in Kansas City's favor going into this game because of that 3-0, because of the injury to Mahomes. And I think Andy Reid just has the coaching edge in this one, and they figure out a way to get it done.
David Tyree, we got one for the Bengals.
No, the Chiefs.
Chiefs?
We got
Okay.
two for the
Thank
Chiefs.
you, Moose.
You're not paying attention.
Good listening, Moose.
He said it like 3 times.
Only twice.
He did. Yeah, I mean, like, I can't add that much more to it. I think that along with this dynamic skill set, maybe some of the things that we haven't seen, I call him the Jordan of the quarterback position. He's doing things, but he's also, it's the competitive nature. You know, I didn't even think it was smart for him to practice on Wednesday. I'm like, what are you doing? Go take at least one day rest. I mean, we want you for the game. But ultimately, I think it's genuine in relation to him. Sounds like Kermit, looks like a little troll over there, but he plays like a lion, and that's what gives me the confidence that he can break the undefeated curse against his nemesis, Joe Burrow.
It's 2. Mr. Buttle?
I don't believe in curses, number one. Number two is I believe in play. Play well, play hard, play smart. That's what the Bengals have been doing, and I think that that's the difference in this football game. The playing hard, you can want to play hard with a bad ankle, but there's certain things you just can't do, and I think that gives a benefit to the Bengals. I love the Bengals.
Moose?
Yeah, I'd go Cincinnati.
You would? Okay.
Yeah.
No reason? Because you're going
No, I
Cincinnati.
gave it before. I take the Bengals. I like the Bengals in the game. I just think they're playing better football right now. The injury of Mahomes is concerning.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take Joe Burrow on 2 legs over Mahomes on 1. All right, let's move over to the NFC. Mr. Tyree.
Oh, it's pretty purdy. Pretty purdy in San Fran, but I think
He's relevant now, isn't he?
Yeah, he's super
Mr.
relevant.
He's relevant now.
Yeah, I said this pretty early. I picked him to, in light of the quality of this team, comprehensively, offensively and defensively, I picked him to make the NFC Championship. Here he is. I do not believe, especially when we got the first glimpse of a major defensive test against the Cowboys last week, that he's going to be able to withstand the onslaught of the Philadelphia Eagles defense. And then, again, the weapons, and the Jalen Hurts-led offense. I think they're awakened. I know they got a giant team that wasn't talented last week, but boy, they did exactly what they were supposed to do coming off a nice bye. I believe the Philadelphia Eagles are positioned themselves well offensively and defense. It's one of the best rosters I've seen in my 20 years since I've come into this league as a player.
Wow.
But San Fran can't be too far behind when you talk about top to bottom rosters.
Yes, the reason why is because when you look at their receivers, Brandon Ayuk is a very good receiver. But he's not top-tier receiver where I look at A.J. Brown, a little bit more of a top-tier receiver for me, and Devontae Smith, scintillating on any given Sunday. I think both of those two receivers, now they're tight end, we got the better tight end in San Fran, but those two receivers are better than the San Francisco receivers.
When you look at like Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey, though, right? The fact that like they seem to be a new breed where they're these hybrid positions, right?
Yeah.
This
And that's why I don't even mention
Yeah.
Deebo, is because we can't count on him. They use him so strategically. We can't count on him as a robust weapon in the receiver game. He will get robust numbers, but he's getting 5 to 10 carries. Isn't it a bad thing? No, it keeps it keeps defenses on their heels. But when I look at the Philadelphia Eagles and their roster, where's the weakness?
Yeah.
I'm really looking for a weakness. I have seen none. Obviously, they've like I said, they're beatable. But I believe that they're up to the test.
I said the other day when we were watching the 49ers play, like, is there any wide receiver in your history you played against, you watched play, that you remember running as hard as Deebo Samuel does when he gets the ball?
No. There's an optic. They, like I said, some players, they have body size, shape, and explosiveness that creates this optic that just kind of blows you away, and he's probably pretty high at the top of that list. He runs like a running back, but he cuts like a receiver. There's nothing he can't do on the offensive side aside from having seen him throw too many passes. Not that he can't. So yeah, he's special to watch. And like I said, it's a different generation of athletes. Like I said, we were still there was some special athletes, but once I come back to the Giants in 2014. and I see Odell Beckham Jr., I'm like, I've never seen an athlete like this guy. So there's some pure breeds out there athletically where we're seeing a new generation of guys that can do some special stuff, and they're amazing to watch.
Greg, Mr. Buttle, your thoughts on the NFC Championship game?
I love the fact that Purdy's the new Earl Morrall, and I think that it's a neat story. It's a really good story. The 49ers have a good football team, really good football team. They've got a very strong defense. They've got an offense that really hasn't turned the ball over, especially because you have a rookie quarterback back there. So I like them. They're a sound football team. And then you go to the Eagles, and the Eagles are a really good football team. There's nothing they can't do. I don't care even if it's special teams. They can do it. And the difference in the game to me will be, again, the fourth quarter. Both the championship games to me going down to the fourth quarter anyway. But where's the difference maker? And you can say all you want about Deebo Samuel and McCaffrey and, the tight end, but is the difference maker really there, or is it the quarterbacks, the difference makers? And I think that Hurts is the difference maker. This kid is phenomenal compared to last year, where he went and learned and he did everything. I think that's the difference, and it's going to be the difference for them in the championship game, and I'm sticking with that story.
Yeah, I think we get kind of caught up. There's a number of reasons why to like Philadelphia. I think first off, you look at game flow and you look at the two coaches, and Sirianni, obviously, more of a modern day coach. You're going to see his emotions on the sideline, hamming it up for the camera, and you saw that Saturday night in the Giant game. But how aggressive is Sirianni? I thought Shanahan's game plan against the Dallas Cowboys was, he did not want to put the ball in the hands of Brock Purdy and have Purdy lose the game, because he felt like his team, his defense was going to keep him in that game. So let's wear him down, get it to a fourth quarter game. We'll be able to withstand it and win a tightly contested game. That mindset worked against Dallas. That mindset's not going to work against the Philadelphia Eagles. So you're going to have to throw and be more aggressive. Now you look at Brock Purdy, where's he had most of his success, as Greg and David has talked about, and where he had success at Iowa State, which made him not a great pro quarterback prospect, was everything was in between the numbers.
There it is.
Everything was thrown to the tight ends in between the numbers, receivers in between the numbers, running backs coming out of the backfield, all that stuff. You try and push him to the outside and make him throw outside the numbers. That's not the strength of Brock Purdy as a thrower. Now, how does the game play out? Is 49ers able to play from this game in front? That adds to a lot to where it's game flow. Are they able to then work in their ground game? If I'm Philadelphia and Sirianni, my thing would be is I want to try and jump out early, put the pressure point on them to where they need to be more aggressive throwing the football, take the ground game out of it, and put the ball in the hands of Brock Purdy and say, let's see if you can go out there and beat us, where we know you have to throw against a defense that had 70 sacks in the regular season. And to the point that Greg mentioned, I totally agree. Like, you look at this matchup, we talk all season long about quarterbacks. We talked about, the year that Daniel Jones had, or the fact that the Jets didn't have one consistent quarterback play. Jalen Hurts, if he didn't get hurt, would have been right there with Patrick Mahomes to be the MVP of the league. So now Brock Purdy is going to go into Philadelphia in an NFC championship game where we know Jalen Hurts is 100% healthy with that throwing shoulder, and the dual threat that he is, and Brock Purdy is going to walk off that field victorious over a guy that's one of a top 5 quarterback in the league. I have a hard time believing that.
Hard time.
What wins championships?
Defense.
Defense wins championships.
No, wait a second. Timeout.
And that's going to be the answer.
Can I tell you something? That is so archaic. It's unbelievable. There's not.
Joe's not that old to say
Wait
something.
a minute.
No. I'll tell you what wins championships.
Wait. Look at the Tampa
throwing
Bay
a ball
Buccaneers,
into the end zone. That wins a championship.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Kansas City Chiefs just a couple of years ago, where Mahomes was running for his life because his offensive linemen were down. Defense won that championship. Look, a couple of years ago,
defense won it because their offense was terrible.
Look at Bill Belichick and the Patriots when they beat
Doesn't
the Rams.
win. The defense does not win
But you can't make an
championships.
argument that Super Bowl.
It is
Andy Reid
unbelievable.
would
You are
coach that game
so in the
arrogantly
past.
because
It's
Fisher
unbelievable.
tore his Achilles the week before.
And he had some things going
The
on
problem
personally
is two
too with
great
his son.
defenses. That's the biggest problem
I
in this
agree.
game. Two great defenses.
It'll be 45-40.
The biggest problem, I think, for Mr. Relevant now is the fact that he also is going against two all-pro corners. It's not just, and obviously the defensive line feeds the productivity of the secondary, but those are two really good corners that can easily match up with their receivers.
Look at Hassan Reddick. It might have been the best free. I mean, Hassan Reddick had 16 tackles. They were playing out in Arizona. They were playing him at inside linebacker. They stuck him on the outside. He had 16 sacks. They gave him $45 million this offseason. Now, you think about that if you're Arizona. How moronic can you possibly be?
And look at the pickups. I mean, what was the weakness of this Philadelphia defense in the middle of the season? It was the run game, and then they go out and add Linval Joseph and then Ndamukong Suh, who were just sitting at home, rested halfway through the season. I think these defenses, I can't wait to watch it. I watched the 49ers play, and they so remind me of that Ravens defense that, the Giants went up against, or that Bucs defense with that Lynch was on a part of, who's now the GM over there in San Francisco. And they do it at every level, right? They have a star at every level, and they are so physical. I think that the talent of Philadelphia is undeniable. I don't think they're close to as physical as the San Francisco team is. And when you look at Hufanga, the safety there, and I mean, he is a wild card in this game. He looks like a carbon copy of Troy Polamalu, who he trained with, and he can be a difference maker in this game. There were a couple plays where I think he's just freelancing out there up at the line of scrimmage making tackles against the Cowboys, and I could see him doing it again. I think this is going to be an absolute rock'em sock'em robots game, and you are going to earn every point you get.
Yeah.
So if defense wins championships, we'll start with you, Joe.
You always start with me.
Is that true?
Well, it seems that
So
way.
we're going to start with you, Moose.
I like the Eagles in the game. I do. I thought once Hurts, the concern you'd have about Philadelphia going in the Giant game, why you'd make an argument for it was a case of, well, not only that, but did the Philadelphia Eagles peak a little bit too soon? They did not play quality football, like the Bills had not played quality football, and you thought, okay, well, is Philadelphia going to be able to turn it on? Sirianni's message after they won that last regular season game to his team was, enjoy it. We've got 2 weeks to figure it out. And they took those 2 weeks and they figured it out. And Hurts, his shoulder was healthy with what is, and I think the line play. I think when healthy, the Eagles have the best offensive line in the NFL.
Yep.
And Lane Johnson's playing with that groin issue. He's the best right tackle in the game. He hasn't given up a sack since 2020, an all-pro. They've got depth along that offensive line as well, should anyone go down to injury. And the defensive line, not only do you have speed, you have veteran presence like Cox and Graham along that defensive front. The Cowboys were able to get after Brock Purdy. I think the Eagles are going to get after Brock Purdy as well. Very similar to what they did when they won their Super Bowl. Protected yours, get after theirs. Philadelphia showed as a combination to be the best in the league this year. I think that's what proves out. I'll take the Eagles.
Yeah, this is Greg Buttle, and I'm going to say 2 words, and I don't say these kindly, but Moose, I agree.
All right.
Yeah, there's not much more to put on that podium. I think the biggest difference maker in the advantage is Jalen Hurts. Even when you looked at Jalen Hurts, and I said this about Daniel Jones, if you insulate Daniel Jones and protect Daniel Jones, he's just as good as Jalen Hurts. He had statistics similar to Lamar Jackson this year, and I think that's what we saw with the Philadelphia Eagles do, build a team around a young emerging quarterback, and he's a tremendous leader alongside of a tremendous talent. That is the biggest advantage. I'm not dare saying fly, Eagles, fly.
No, but none of us are.
But I do believe that this is the team that's gonna win the game.
The quarterback position hands down goes to the Eagles. I'm gonna go with the defense of San Francisco 49ers. I think they put it on their back and they end up finding a way.
Contrarian.
And I think that I think that Shanahan finds a game plan to get his playmakers the ball. And say what you want about the talent that the Eagles have, I think the creativity that Shanahan can have with that offense and has shown comes out in this game. I don't think he coaches it as tight as we've known him to coach it in the past there.
So I think Mr. Irrelevant is relevant, but he's not going to win the game. He's not going into Philadelphia against that defense and taking that team to the Super Bowl. So now we got the Eagles winning at least 4-1 against Joseph.
You know where they put up that picture on every Twitter account where everybody picks the same team and then they go wrong. So I have to be contrarian to save us from getting trolled by some account.
That's it.
And that's the right thing for you to do, and we appreciate you taking one for the team. All right, who's going to win the Super Bowl, Moose?
I think it would be if it's Philadelphia, Cincinnati. I think if it's Philadelphia, any of the matchups, I think it would be great. I think the Eagles.
Yeah,
I think the Eagles in the end.
I agree. I do. I like the Eagles. And I'm not an Eagle fan, but I like the whole thing of the Eagles, from coaching down to the guy that goes and runs on the field and gets the tee off from the kickoff.
Yeah, I do believe the Eagles have the clear line. Like I said, it's sometimes deflating to have to admit, but what Harry Roseman did, building this team and his roster,
amazing.
What fell into his lap, even with a James Bradbury, the in-season adjustments. It's like doubling down. We got something good. Oh, you know what? Let me get Linville. Let me get. It's like there's no way those players can't believe.
He had Ndamukong Suh on the field finishing off the Giant game at the end of the game. I mean, think about, and I know he's not the same player he was 5 years ago,
He
but
can still step in there. He can still step in there and stuff some things up, and to have him at that price, to have him, fill those gaps. Yeah, this is a team that I do believe is built to take home the crown.
All right, well, I said it's going to be the Niners and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
So you can't pick the Eagles.
No, I cannot pick the Eagles. I think San Francisco finds a way to not bungle it up down the stretch the way they did last time they faced the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And I think San Francisco is lifting the Lombardi Trophy.
Wow.
San Francisco.
Yeah, crazy, right?
I picked KC to win it all. It's tough to get over the optic. It's going to be nice to see. We'll see what happens with Patrick this weekend. See how he plays.
So I'm die Eagles die. I can't stand them, but sadly I gotta pick them. All right, let's turn our attention to what the JETS Jets can do to be in the conversation next year and in the tournament. Breaking right before the podcast was Nathaniel Hackett coming in as the OC. Mr. Buttle, does that make the landing spot any easier for Aaron Rodgers?
I don't think it makes it easier. I just think the landing spot becomes tinier now, and I think that's an opportunity that had to be thought of by everyone at the Jets. And I'm not, again, here we talk about conspiracies and all those things. It's nepotism at the best in the NFL, with coaches who know coaches who know coaches who have coached with and have coached for coaches. So that whole thing is all heating up as to whether did LaFleur talk to Salah, his brother and the mother and the sister and the cousin, and is Aaron Rodgers really going to go to the Jets if there's no offensive coordinator there, or an offensive coordinator he doesn't know? And I would tell you that answer would be no. But now I can't say that. I can say that door is wide open for a soft landing in a small spot for the end of the career of an Aaron Rodgers that the Jets would probably be all in on. What are the Jets missing that gets them to the promised land? Quarterback. And a Derek Carr. I like Derek Carr. I mean, he throws the ball great. He's a real good quarterback.
Well, let me ask you this, Craig.
But he's not Aaron Rodgers. But if it's not Aaron Rodgers, it's Derek Carr.
All right, well, if you had your druthers, I know cost-benefit analysis. You got to see what you have to give up to Green Bay, what you'd have to give up to Vegas. But if you look at the two, which two of those two, Carr or Rodgers, who do you want?
Aaron Rodgers.
No, even with everything that comes along with it.
Aaron Rodgers.
Well,
I'll take
Carr.
Aaron Rodgers because I want it. It's not I want to win in 3 years. It's not when I want to win in 2 years.
Yeah.
The guarantee for me is if I have Rodgers with Hackett, the convenience of them together. There's no missing parts in there. I've got the receivers. I've got a running game. Hell, I even have an offensive line if they're healthy. Aaron Rodgers to me is the tight fit. Derek Carr is a loose fit as far as I'm concerned because I don't know if it's Super Bowl next year. But with Aaron Rodgers, I would think that the Jets have a hell of a chance for a Super Bowl.
But Craig, you could have Derek Carr for
but
3 years or 4
David
years
doesn't
or
want.
5
David
years.
wants Carr.
Let me tell you what, Carr is a far better fit. New York is the most unique football market, sports market in the world. It takes a unique personality type. Aaron Rodgers is cringing the world in Green Bay.
Yeah.
He cringes the world in Green Bay.
Population 225
He makes
people.
himself unlikable in Green
That's
Bay,
exactly
Wisconsin.
why he'd be great in New York.
That's exactly why he would be a flake in New York.
By the
It'd
way,
be great for us. in
By
New
the way,
York.
we're recording this across the headquarters of Pfizer in New York City. Just saying,
Right.
That's where
Well,
we
he'll
record.
never go
No,
in
he'll
there.
never be here.
Right, he probably won't come onto this
Well,
block.
David, you think there's a shot that it just completely crashes and burns? Don't you think Rodgers leaving Green Bay would be supremely motivated? I know he said the other day on the McAfee show about trying to win another MVP. I thought maybe he was taken out of context a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, he also said that, wants to go in a spot to win a championship and win a Super Bowl.
All right, so
Don't you
that's
think
the perfect-
Rodgers would be motivated here?
That's the perfect soundbite. I want to go win another MVP. Not first. I want to go win another championship. Now, I think that's it's worthy of criticism, although it's not like the worst thing in the world. It speaks to competitive nature, but at the end of the day, he's a grown behind man. You can live any kind of way you want. You can make any kind of decision you want. He's earned that right at his career, but it does project something. I think Aaron Rodgers, toward the latter years of his career, he's finding his way. He's doing mushrooms. He's doing whatever the heck he's doing, right? And it starts to get weird where you start no organization, and New York is going to pick the scabs.
Yeah.
New York and Derek Carr does not present that. Derek Carr at his best is one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, and he's focused on one thing. He does the right thing, says the right things. Those are typically the kind of quarterbacks that flourish in this market.
2 words: Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando acted with his pants off, but he was a great actor. I don't care. I want Marlon Brando.
Well, after looking at Aaron Rodgers this year, I don't know if the love affair is the same.
But who was the last person, even in New York sports overall, that wore the black hat the way Aaron Rodgers has said, "I will play the villain, put it on me, I'll be that guy." Who was the last person in New York sports? Like I can't even
A-Rod.
remember. Did he? But was he maybe for like a minute?
In New York
A-Rod wants
sports?
to be loved all the time.
Right, he's kissing
Yeah.
himself in the mirror. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. If,
I
nobody. It's been a
love
long
Charles
time.
Oakley. There was no like we had
Mace.
Mace. I mean, like
Mace?
maybe they were lovable though. Like,
But the one thing to the point
well, they
is
were
Rodgers.
lovable when they're your Knicks.
So
Ask in
wait.
Chicago.
On that note, will Aaron Rodgers become lovable?
Yes.
because he's on your team.
By
I
Jet
don't know.
fans, absolutely.
If he's winning.
Yeah, of course. They're absolutely going to love him. My question to you, David, is if he is focused on MVP,
Sure.
he went back-to-back MVPs with Hackett as his offensive coordinator. So again, I mean, it seemed implausible
Sure.
2 days ago that he would come to New York.
Yeah.
But if that is his focus, does that give Jet fans hope?
It does. It does. So I'm not going to diminish the legacy of the man in relation to these two options, in relation to this market, in relation to a science experiment that could go wrong. That's the experiment. That's the chia pet that can grow the wrong hair. And whereas Derek Carr he's just a straight and narrow guy. And not saying he's the best human in the world. I don't know him personally. I just know that he bleeds with passion. He plays. He hasn't been perfect. There's been flaws, but let's look at the organization. And hey, I think the Jets roster fits both quarterbacks. We'll see.
Do you think though? I mean, so Derek Carr has been to one playoff game, right, in his
Yeah.
career at this point. They go out and they get him Devontae Adams, and then the new coach gives up on him, right, in the season. And obviously there was a poison pill in this contract.
But he had that one
was all
year
the-
when they had to start Connor Cook at quarterback where he broke his ankle like week 15. He
Right.
would have went to. They were one of the better teams in the league.
And I
that
think
year.
I think
he was
they,
an MVP
both
candidate.
both teams
Right.
were backup quarterbacks in that. I think was it the
Right,
Texans
correct.
maybe, yeah, and whatever it was. But
The
it was
game
a
was
battle of the
atrocious.
backups. It was so bad, yes. But when you look at that though, I mean, does that concern you? I mean, the fact that you're going to go out, you're going to have to give him a big contract, right? He's still going to go get a significant amount of money. It may not be the current contract that he has.
It doesn't concern me when I look at the Jets roster. The Jets defense, the Jets wide receiver, the Jets young running backs. He's never had a team like that. He's never had, and I'm
Never
not.
had defense.
Right.
Defense,
He's
I'll
never
agree.
had
But,
defense.
but Darren Waller, Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs. I mean, he's not short on talent out there at the
No,
offensive
he's not.
side of the ball.
He's not short on talent. He's short of Josh McDaniels.
all right.
And I think that's what we're saying. That's what we're saying here.
Doesn't buy into the Patriot way.
Yeah, give me Rob Saleh over Josh McDaniels 3 years ago as a defensive coordinator. So I think when it comes to culture, I do believe the Jets have made the better turn in relation to shifting culture and leadership. But and the roster's ripe. Yeah, they got to figure out this quarterback. If they want it now, is there for the getting. And those are two good quarterbacks to bring into the franchise.
Okay, so around this table, we're saying that 2 days ago that probably wasn't possible. Today, it is possible that Aaron Rodgers could be a Jet. Greg
But it's
Buttle,
not going to
what
happen. But
is-
we also have to go on the. It's not going to happen here and now because
No.
due
Well,
to
the
his
$60 million.
No, due to his contract,
Yeah.
they can't acquire him until after June 1st.
Yeah.
So
and
it's-
even
it's-
though it's only $11 million after the cap,
Right,
it's
right.
$60 million.
Right, he's due $60 million.
That's
So
a
I mean,
lot.
right. So there's that June 1st date. So you'd have to wait a while for Rodgers.
But as the eternal optimist, which I always am, guilty as charged, Mr. Buttle, if they got Aaron Rodgers, what's the high water mark for the Jets next year?
I would have to just go to the championship game with him. That's the high mark. If the playoffs would be good, if they had any quarterback with consistency and non-injury on the offensive line, they would have been in the playoffs this year. I think everybody in the smart football world knows that, including Woody Johnson and Saleh. But all of the things went south on them, and now if you can get a guy in there and it's not Aaron Rodgers and it's Derek Carr, I don't care which one of them it is. I still think it's AFC Championship game. That's a tough defense that the Jets have, and I'm not saying defenses win championships.
No,
but I'm going to tell you
Joe
something.
Massari.
I'm going to tell you something.
antiquated
They'll
line.
take you through the playoffs.
Get off my lawn.
David, high water mark with Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think it's AFC Championship, and that this year has showed us that. This year, the Jets should have been in the playoffs.
Yep.
And they had horrendous and inconsistent quarterback play. They probably had about 3 to 4 weeks of decent, solid quarterback play throughout this 17
all year.
Yeah,
week,
Mike White.
week schedule. And 2 of those might have came from Mike White. So, and like I said, they tried to make us believe that Mike White was the future of the Jets. Come on, man. I mean, come on. I mean, God bless the kid. I'm a former player who had a few shots, so I'm rooting for him. But that's not what's going to pass here. Time to take the notch up.
Joseph, high water mark if Aaron Rodgers comes?
I mean, they have to win the Super Bowl within 2 years if they get Aaron
Yeah.
Rodgers. You
Well,
get two-
because
you
he'll
get 2
retire
years.
after that.
And if you're
at most.
if you're going to bring
And
in
we'll
Aaron
sweat
Rodgers,
next
that needs to
offseason.
happen because a 2-year window.
Yeah.
And anything short of that within those 2 years is a failure.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's not just making the playoffs or where you put them in the conference. I think it's winning a Super Bowl. You make that move to try and win a Super Bowl.
They have to make the playoffs with or without Rodgers next year.
There you
There's
go. Yeah.
there's no mandate.
Well, right.
'cause we
We
don't
talked
believe
about
in
right.
that.
If it's
Woody
Carr,
Johnson.
Rodgers, Garoppolo,
Right.
you better be a playoff team.
Exactly.
Zach Wilson's out, huh, guys?
Yeah.
Just wash him.
Well, for
Yeah.
now, he's got a hiatus.
David, he's all.
I'd keep. I would not get rid of that kid.
I certainly wouldn't either.
I would keep him, and I would teach that kid. You had no one to teach him anything.
Well,
Yeah.
that's why Rodgers might make a perfect fit. He can learn under Rodgers. You
You ain't learning
for a
crap
couple
under
years.
Rodgers.
No,
He's just as bad
Rodgers
as
and
Brett
Wilson
Favre.
text each other.
He's just as bad as Brett Favre. He learning crap.
I hear Tom Brady is
Yeah, Favre
doesn't let the backup take
Favre
snaps
didn't
either.
care. Favre was looked at Rodgers as an annoyance.
Heck out of here.
Yeah.
These guys are ultra competitors. I think, like I said,
Well, what's interesting is you draw the parallels and the similarities with Love sitting on the bench. He's been on the bench for 3 years now,
Yeah.
behind Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers was on the bench for 3 years behind Brett Favre when they drafted him. Now the difference was when they drafted Rodgers coming out of Cal, they had him as the number one player on the board.
That's right.
They didn't trade up back into the first round to go draft.
And he fell to what number was it, like 24 or something
Yeah.
like that. But think about this too. Rodgers was saying on the Pat McAfee show about all of the additions that the Jets have made, going out and getting Uzama, Breece Hall, drafting Garrett Wilson. The Packers have never drafted a wide receiver in, what is it, the top 3 rounds? That's insane. You talk about building. You talk about what Philadelphia has done to build their own. Like, it is insane. So you go out and use a first round pick on his future replacement.
Yeah.
What does this say to the guy?
They do have
I
a good
can't
one this
believe
year,
he's
though.
still
Watson's
there.
a stud.
Watson is a stud.
He
But
is.
that's why it didn't make any sense to resign. Like, like he had every reason to step back, be his own boss. Hey, man, I've given you some of the best quarterback play that the NFL's ever seen. And he resigns. He's watched them do it.
But that beeping when you're backing up the Brinks truck can be very distracting and very influential.
Like no one else was going to pay the guy, right?
true.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Got
why.
me a nice feeling having $60 million, coming your way.
Probably
Guaranteed.
not bad, right?
Not bad.
Yeah, you start shopping islands to buy. All right, so speaking of making the playoffs, as we now have determined the Jets will next season under Aaron Rodgers, the Giants made the playoffs. They took a huge step forward. Shane and Daboll were brilliant in the preseason managing expectations. Mr. Tyree, Shane came out at his press conference and said Daniel Jones is a priority, but he could be due almost $30 million. Do you think they get that done?
That's a big question. Like I said, Daniel Jones, of course everybody wants to be back. Everybody wants to finish where they started. These guys get one crack at a big contract typically. You're lucky to get a third. It mostly doesn't happen. And Daniel Jones wasn't as optimistic as Saquon Barkley sounded. He sounded very shrewd as a businessman, and in relation to not getting that 5th-year extension, good for him. And these are the fun little, contract battles, but I think he's going to be dealing with a shrewd boss with Joe Shane. And so hopefully they do get it done, but it's really going to limit. You got Dexter Lawrence, Julian Love, and obviously Saquon Barkley. These are all players you really want to have back. Is Daniel Jones?
Well, and here's the thing, and David and Gray, is that I got a sense from Shane is that temper down expectations about what they're going to do this offseason.
Yep.
Just as they tempered down expectations about what they were going to do this regular
Masters
season.
at that.
Well, they the other thing is they've got to take care of guys in house. They got to figure out Jones. If you sign Jones, if you pay Daniel Jones $30 million a year, what are you going to pay Saquon Barkley?
There we go.
Because Barkley said he doesn't want to set the new market. The market is McCaffrey making $16 million a year. All right, so you don't want 17, but where's the number? Is it 12? Is it 14 million?
He turned down 12, right?
Right.
So then what's he going to agree to?
Right, and there might be another team looking at Barkley on a short-term kind of a deal that would be willing, in a win-now situation.
Yeah, and I think that's the challenge that they're going to have. Their best players played their best football at the right time. So
I think
Greg,
if
do you
you're,
have 2
I think
words for us?
Yes, I do, but I can't get them in edgewise.
It's tough at this table.
Oh, I'm in the middle
Jump
of
in
them. I'm
there,
in the
baby.
hammock, man.
He wasn't a double Dutch
You got
player.
the cigar going in the hammock.
It's
Big Blue, we jump in the
unbelievable.
ocean.
All I can tell you, something. If you live in Seattle, you live in Phoenix, you live in California, and you're a fan of football, you can't even name the wide receivers and the tight end for the New York Giants. Mm-hmm. They have to improve that. It's not that Daniel Jones is limited. He's gotten as good as you can possibly get with what they have there. Daboll's done an unbelievable job with him. I've loved Daniel Jones, as you guys know. I've said it to you for 2 years now. But who does he have around him? He doesn't have anyone around him. They've started with the offensive line with Neal, and I think he's going to get better. And the other side, the tackle, Thompson, he's good. You may improve something there, but you need to have in this league wide receivers that can catch a ball and score touchdowns. If Daniel Jones has that, I'm telling you, that kid reminds me, of Jalen Hurts with the Eagles. Sure. This kid can do a lot. And I'm telling you, I would probably pay him that much money, and I'd trade Saquon Barkley. Oh, Penn State. But all I'm saying is that I can...
Trade? He's leaving.
Yeah, or leave as a free agent.
Whatever. He can leave as a free agent, or they can take this, because there are a lot of guys in the NFL that can play running back, and you see it every single day as injuries come and injuries go. Are there other Saquon Barkleys out there? Saquon Barkley is unto himself, as Deebo Samuels is unto himself, but or Hunt was unto himself. But you can interchange those pieces. It's not easy to interchange a quarterback. And so to me, that's the story, the quarterback. It's not Saquon Barkley, and I love Saquon Barkley as a player, but in terms of value to your team, I don't think that is that important in a total scheme.
All right, I want to ask this to David, though. Saquon Barkley has said he wants to be here, right? Like, the Maras seem to be loyal as an organization. Although we saw Joe Shane, right? They cut Blake Martinez.
Yeah.
They seem to be killers in the front office here. Could you see them letting the face of the franchise go, though?
I can't. I don't think it would be prudent. Here's the deal. There's not a lot of. There's 3 backs that are on the skill set level of Saquon Barkley. What he did this year, he's done before. He proved that he's back. Injuries, we all know we can't control them. Daniel Jones is everything that you said, but we're on a 1-year confidence boost with Daniel Jones. That's the biggest challenge. We got a 1-year audition of this guy can really play. Everything else was maybe this guy can really play, and that's the big problem with where you price this guy. Where you price this guy. Do you want him? Yes, you want him. You don't want anybody to walk out. But is this? These are defining decisions for a Joe Shane and a Brian Dable, and they can't say he's their guy. They can say they like this guy. They can say we can win with this guy. And I think that if it's not at the right price, if there's one or two that I'm going to keep, and I have to give that fair number to the guy, it's Saquon Barkley. And that's if I have to. I mean, like, if I have to, it's Saquon Barkley. The issue for me is 1 year. Yeah, he was your guy in the sixth round, but at the end of the day, you're not paying a guy and trusting your guy with 1 year of proven success.
How many championships did Barry Sanders win?
0.
Yeah.
How many players?
I mean, I'm just
How many
using
did
him.
Daniel Jones win?
No, but I'm
0.
just saying the Giants have a better chance of winning a championship game with Daniel Jones than they do with Saquon Barkley.
This is the deal.
In the scheme of what offense is today.
If everything Daniel Jones' success is hinged on the if the right pieces are in place. And guess what? I'm not saying that I haven't evaluated quarterbacks in the draft this year, but if you can go get a quarterback that you're persuaded about, which the Giants did, Dave Gettleman did, it's not an if factor. When you get Lamar Jackson, they're not saying if. When you got Patrick Mahomes, you're not saying if. They elevate the team.
Yeah,
Jalen Hurts, these guys, they were 1 season away from having all the pieces in place. Are the Giants 1 season away?
Well, wait.
But the
I don't
interesting
know.
thing about the Eagles is that the Eagles have all, like, what's scary is we all picked the Eagles to win the Super Bowl. They also have a top 10 draft choice this spring in the draft.
And the Giants are
deals
at
that they've
25.
made. I know.
This
That's
is
where
what-
people looked at Jalen Hurts this year as a proven year, saying if Hurts doesn't prove it, the Eagles then could go get their quarterback and do the reset, and they're winning. And what you want to do, and where the Giants rebuild is a little bit behind the 8 ball now, is because look at the guys. Burrow is on his rookie deal.
Yep.
Sure.
You want to win. Want to try and win on your, Hurts is on his rookie deal. You want to try and win on your rookie deal before you start paying guys.
This is all we're saying here. And this is just economics, not emotional feelings. I want Daniel Jones as the quarterback of the New York Giants at the right price. And can I still build with these centerpieces that have also proven tremendous value?
You have to know then that the guy you're going after in the draft, that you can make it work with him. And look, they did that with Josh Allen, right? There were a lot of questions about Josh Allen and his accuracy up in Buffalo before this regime came down here. But look at the Jets, man. They missed on Darnold, they missed on Wilson, or maybe they didn't miss, they didn't have the pieces around him. I want to challenge one thing you say though. Well, Sam Darnold looked okay toward down the end of the stretch in Carolina there.
How's Geno Smith doing?
This there.
Pretty
right?
well.
I mean, so you said the pieces need to be right around Daniel Jones. I think we all agree that the pieces aren't there around Daniel Jones right now, and he looked good. The coaching was there.
Yes.
And Kafka, I mean, there's a play
Well,
caller
the bottom
was there.
line, the
Now we get a
culture was really bad.
Right.
And-
But show us a player in the NFL that can thrive in a terrible culture. It's going to be rare.
There are players. There are players that ascend beyond culture, like Joe Burrow.
Wow. right.
They're like me. He's so good. He has become
changed
a
the culture,
thermostat.
yeah.
He changed it.
He is the thermostat.
You're right about
for
that.
the
All
team.
the talk about the Bengals cheap, bad organization,
Yeah.
poorly run, all that. Everyone wants to be a
it's
Bengal.
Gone.
Yeah.
It's gone. At the end of the day, when you get in these top 10 quarterback picks, these are guys that are supposed to withstand all the limitations of the previous regime. These are not guys that you're coming in to say, if we get the right pieces. Now, like, guess what? This is my guy. Eli Manning is my guy. But he was if the right pieces are in place quarterback.
Yes.
Do you understand that? He wasn't a transcend a bad offensive line, transcend poor wide receiver quarterback. But it changes nothing about his championship caliber, i.e. Daniel Jones. So can we win a championship with Daniel Jones? Yes. What's the price with one season? And guess what? I think the Giants won them. And I think it'll be interesting how they figure this out with there was no Saquon Barkley contract along with Eli, right? There was no running back. They had Ahmad Bradshaw. You know, obviously
Brandon Jacobs,
different.
Yeah.
and Jacobs. It's just a different decisions to make.
All right, so speaking of decisions, what do the Giants need to do to make a step forward? They've got decisions on Daniel Jones, Barkley, which we talked about, Leo Williams, Julian Love, plus do they need to get a number one receiver and or tight ends to put people around Daniel Jones if they sign him? Mark, if you're the GM, what is your blueprint? Because sadly, they set the bar pretty high. How do they now pay people and take another step?
Yeah, I think you're gonna have to. As he talked about taking the emotions out of the game, I think everyone's gonna scream about having a number one wide receiver. I think it's improving the receiving room. If that receiver is not there, I think they're gonna look for a corner outside of Adoree Jackson. They like Xavier McKinney. I think they want to see what the cost is going to be for Julian Love. Leonard Williams likes being a Giant. How much does he like being a Giant? And see about restructuring that contract. You know, if they can get Saquon Barkley at their price, they'd like to have Saquon Barkley back. I don't think they're going to overpay for him. The issue they have with Daniel Jones is, they did not pick up the 50-year option. They can't. If you franchise tag him, the number is north of $38 million, I believe, for a franchise quarterback. So they want to try and get him at a number that's conceivable for them, but they can't let him hit the open market because whatever way you look at Daniel Jones there's a team out there. Washington would take him. There's some team out there that would.
Indianapolis.
There is a team out there he's a starting quarterback. Daniel Jones is a starting quarterback in the National Football League.
100%.
If along that theory, okay. Let's just pretend. All right, so let's just pretend. Would I rather pay Daniel Jones $38 million for this next year, and then deal with a new contract for him after that, or go out and pay him 30, 40, 50, 40, $100 million in a new contract? Which would I rather do? Well, if I'm the general manager, I'd say, here's $38 million. I'm going to franchise you $38 million. So I got you for another year. And now Daniel Jones is in the catbird seat, and the Giants are, because they've got him cheap for $38 million.
Cheap? That's quite a price tag.
For what? For 1 year?
Yeah, I mean, it
For
puts
1
him,
year,
it puts him as like the third highest.
It doesn't
the whole
matter.
cap.
You want me to sign him for 5 years for
$30 million.
You're not
one-
signing him 5 years for $30 million.
No.
$30 million per 5 years, $150. But the thing
The
is,
guarantee is going to be $70 million.
The math is good, Moose.
No.
The guarantee
fly.
is going to be 50% of his salary.
You
I'm telling you,
Yeah, all
the
right.
guarantee is
3
50%.
years. You could do a three
The guarantee on his salary is going to be more than the
I mean,
$38
you're gonna
million.
you're gonna
Nah.
find out how much Daniel
Yeah,
Jones
but-
wants to be a Giant.
but the other thing
because
is-
if you make him a fair offer like that, and you say you give him,
But I
whatever
could
it
play
is for
around.
3
But
years.
the other thing is, if I sign him to a long-term deal, I could spread the signing bonus over the length of that deal
Thank
to
you.
where
Right.
then I could play with it. So it's
Then
not
I
a
could play
38.
with the cap.
So it's not a $38 million cap hit for this year, where
I'm
he's
guaranteeing him the money.
No,
You're
no.
guaranteeing him 50%.
You got to
of his
guarantee
contract.
these kids money. And
right.
but that doesn't change what the average per year is. It's kind of like at the end of the day is the reason why you sign a longer term deal is so that the number's down And that's
Gives you more room to play.
Gives you more room to play and build the rest of your team. But hey, that 38 is a hard 38 if they franchise him. Period.
Right.
If they get him at
And it's fully guaranteed.
And it's fully guaranteed. And
That's right.
And
I'll
so, hey, listen, that's one way of
My
doing it.
insurance policy.
Pocket GM, we're good.
Joe Shane is much better at this than I am.
Hey, he's much better than this at me. I'm just saying I need more. I still have to build the team around Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
That's the challenge. If I give him all the money, I can't help him be great. That's
Look,
He's good.
Here's 30. Here's $30 million. Or I'm going to franchise him at 38.
So-
it's my one guarantee. I make it. It's $190 million payroll. All right, I'm going to do it for 1 year. Next year, if he's in, I do the long-term contract. This year, I can go get my wide receivers that I need or whoever I'm going to go in there. And
They're not going to go to free agency for wide receivers. I mean, we saw they have Kenny Galladay and that taste in their mouth. And we've seen what rookie
They're going to draft a receiver.
right, and we've seen what rookie wide receivers can do. So it just makes sense to draft it, to go through the draft
But
to,
either way,
to
I'm
find
just
your wide
saying is
receiver.
that I think it makes sense to franchise him instead of giving him a new contract, guaranteeing half the money, and now you're trapped for 5 years, 4 years, 3 years.
3 years.
Right? So
3 years.
3 years is too much if he's wrong.
Nah.
3 years is too much if
No,
he's
because the
wrong.
draft is replacement.
watching that,
you look good this
That's
year.
year.
After
No, that's
watching
another-
that,
I get
but
it,
you don't turn back now,
But
but
obviously,
Yeah,
they,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Don't turn
obviously,
back now.
I
Nobody
mean,
did.
they're not playing, but obviously they want him. They're not playing footsie under the table. I mean, they're desperate for him to come back. I mean,
Don't
Shane's
turn back
talked about
now.
it. I mean, they basically they want Daniel Jones to be
Yes.
back at the as their starting quarterback. So they don't see another direction that they want to go to in the here and now. I mean. Like I don't know where the number is. I think Jones is back as the Giants quarterback.
Sure.
But it's a salary cap world we live in.
Will Daniel
Barkley out,
Jones
huh?
be back? Will Saquon Barkley
Conspiracy
get the
theory from
franchise
Joe
tag?
Masseri.
Tune in next episode of New York Sports Nation. The drama continues.
All right, gentlemen, last question. The Giants exceeded all expectations. They do have a lot of salary cap, but they got a lot of people with Daniel Jones and Saquon and Leo and Love, and they got a lot of people they got to try to bring back. And then that doesn't even, if they do spend all their money on that, are they going to be better? No. So the question is, are they going to be better next year or not? It's a Rubik's Cube to put it together.
Okay, so let me just say this, okay? Because the Giants and the Jets both played a, let's call it a soft schedule if you want, because they were so bad the years before.
not in the NFC East.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying.
Best conference in the NFL.
Now next
Top
year,
to bottom.
next year the Jets are going to be playing. I think they're playing 8 or 9 playoff teams, and the Giants, of course, are going to be playing playoff teams within the system. And the Redskins will be better. Redskins, the Washington,
Commanders.
the Washington Commanders.
Hashtag take command.
So my thing is that they're both of these teams are going to have a more difficult schedule next year, no matter what. So I don't know what the expectations can be based on this year. I mean, the Giants won how many games by a field goal or one score, as a lot of the teams in the league did this year. So who knows what's going to happen next year? That's why it becomes more important. What am I going to do with Daniel Jones? And not what I'm going to do. Not what I'm going to do with Saquon Barkley.
$38 million. Back up the Briggs truck.
That's right.
Moose?
I don't know. I think they could take a step back next year. I think it's hard. It's nearly impossible to kind of predict it based on you have no idea how this offseason plays out. But could you see a regression? Yeah, I think Shane and Daboll when they took over.
All right, let me jump in real quick.
Yeah.
Did the Buffalo Bills take a step back this year?
No.
No.
Of course they did. Yes.
Absolutely they
Come
did.
on.
They weren't the same, but right. And I think the Giants. I think you came in with they had initial success. You found out as a Giant fan that you have a head coach in Brian Daboll. You've got a staff that's going to maximize the talent. There's things to like
Culture
about
change.
No doubt, a massive upgrade when you look at the coaching and the culture. But I think we got to be realistic. They were in salary cap hell when they took over.
Yep.
The drafts didn't go particularly well. It wasn't an overly deep roster. They squeezed every win they could out of this team this year.
Sure.
Does it necessarily mean that that's the way it's going to play out next year? I mean, David and Greg played in the NFL. We've watched enough NFL to realize that doesn't work that way, especially when especially when you're looking at a team on the margins, and that's what the Giants are right now. They're a team on the margins. They're not the Eagles. They're not the Chiefs. They're not the Cincinnati Bengals. They're on the margins. Even though the Bills did regress this year, but no one ever thought going into the season the Bills were not going to be a playoff team. But they took a step back this season.
Well, I'll say that, I think they have a little bit more reason to be optimistic. I don't know if the major players can all make it back. I don't know if Julian, when you think about, Dexter Lawrence, I believe still has the 5th-year option, came in the same year as Daniel Jones. So you're in good shape. He's peaking. Julian Love, great centerpiece, somebody you want to keep. I don't think it's going to be Julian's out, maybe Saquon's out. Maybe Saquon. We have to imagine this possibility because, maybe I'm personally keeping Saquon, but hey, I totally understand the Daniel Jones predicament here. I don't see the marriage of those two star players with the improvements they're looking to make comprehensively, of course, through the draft and in free agency. But I do see an improved roster because I believe they make fair, calculated decisions evaluating talent throughout the league and free agency as well as through the draft. I see that there's no way that they can go but up. How they play, put that team together, synergize it, that's what gets you your win-loss total.
Parity is the constant in the NFL. 9-8, 8-9, right? They were 9-7-1 and got a playoff spot. So who's to say they can't do that again next year and still be better than they were this year because their schedule was tougher and clearly they're a better team than we saw on the field this year. I think that's what you're going to expect from them this coming year. 8-9, 9-8, something like that.
I think we had meaningful football in December for both teams, and I think that that's fantastic. And I think that we'll have that again next year. I think the culture change that Mark and David talked about is critical. And that's something that goes from year to year, and coaching goes from year to year. And I just want to quickly thank everybody for watching the Blitz this year. I want to thank the Moose for guiding the ship and doing a great job.
Thanks, Doc.
Greg Buttle for bringing, knowledge to the Jets. David Tyree for bringing his championship pedigree to the team, and Joe for all his inside information on the Jets, going out to camp every week and digging up all of the most pertinent stories for the Jets. And it was a hell of a year.
Yep.
So I want to thank everybody for watching the New York Blitz. I want to thank everybody for listening to the podcast. And don't forget, Sunday night, 11 o'clock, New York Sports Nation, Pix 11.
See you then. Take care, everybody.
When's our lunch?
Well, we're all meeting for dinner.
You started humming a